done a spectacular job of organizing this. I've been around Capitol Hill events for a few years, and they've done, this is just spectacular. Prince Hill, thank you, Congressman, for being here. They invented this new system of having committee and remote voting, and anytime you give congressmen a chance not to be in Washington, they're not here. So it's thank you for making the effort of being back in town. My thought is just very simple on this, and I've been working in this space for a long period of time, but we've all siloed it in our own faith, generally. Not exclusively, but generally. The Christians will advocate for Christians, and Muslims for Muslims, and Jews for Jewish issues, and that's fine, but it's limited. You build them together, it explodes. It just catapults the issue on forward. The only way to do that is for people like folks in this room to build authentic relationships with each other. Like what we're seeing, you're going to hear from Pakiyaya and the World Evangelical Alliance building and writing a book together, which standing together is one thing, write a book. I am really impressed that you guys could do that. And when we do that, we break down those distrust barriers between each other and we come together to stand for each other's freedom of religion. That's what we're just standing for, each other's human right. We are not agreeing on theology, we are agreeing on a common human right. When we do that, that issue, this is going to catapult it forward. And I think it's going to help in the foreign policy development around the world if the religious leaders and people can kind of start saying, we're going to stop killing each other in the name of our God. We're going to start loving each other in the name of our God, because that's what He calls us to do. We're going to start having respect for each other, because that's what He actually calls us to do. A good friend of mine, I follow Jesus, he said, you know, whether it's a friend or an enemy, Jesus calls us to do the same thing. Then He calls us to love them. That's either way. You know, so okay, well, I guess it's pretty direct. It's pretty hard. Our level has generally been, we'll tolerate each other. That's what we've asked of the religious leaders in the past. Just tolerate each other. It's not a high enough standard, and we've got to elevate it, and I think this group is moving that way. I think this is going to happen. I think it's happening now. I don't think it's something we need to wait on. And I think really this movement on religious freedom is one that can be the setting for that to happen in. You always need to have a conversation starter. And I think this can be the conversation starter, because we all agree we should have religious freedom for each other. We all agree we should have religious freedom for everybody everywhere. Let that start the conversation and move us forward, and the world will applaud. They will explode in applause, because they're just waiting for us to stop fighting and killing each other and hating each other. They really are. And they're watching us and saying, why do you do that? I mean, that's not what you say, that's what you do. And you might not see people in this room do, but it gets manipulated. Our faiths get manipulated around the world, and then it explodes in terrible places and ways. We can stop it. We can stop it. And I am just so enthusiastic, because I think that's what this movement and this group is doing, and it's doing it now in real time. We have a press conference today, World Evangelical Alliance and Pakiyaya. I can't wait to see how people cover that. That's going to be world's largest Muslim organization and World Evangelical Alliance coming together at a press conference. Wow, that's pretty cool. That's better than Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell coming together. I don't know. What do you think, Fritz? Is that
And a lot more likely.
Anyway, God bless you for being here. I look forward to having you at the summit and interacting, and I hope you build a really strong set of relationships while you're here.
Here, here.
Take care. Thanks.
Thank you, Ambassador Brownback. I know you have such a busy schedule. It's very kind of you to attend this breakfast. Has Katrina come in yet? I think we're going to be welcoming our co-chair as well, Dr. Katrina Lantos Sweat. But before I before I introduce her, I would like to, I have the distinct honor and privilege of introducing Congressman French Hill, who's here with us. He's a representative, House of Representatives for the 2nd District of Arkansas. He sits on the House Committee on Financial Services, but he's deeply committed to international religious freedom, and most recently, a very important bipartisan, bicameral initiative, a letter that was sent to President Biden, was led by Congressman Hill. And this letter is extremely important. In fact, it informs the objectives of this summit. It informs our movement on the Hill for the past week, and that is to fill the position that Ambassador Brownback occupied, the Ambassador at Large position for international religious freedom, and also to create a position for a Director of International Religious Freedom in the National Security Council, because as we know, religious freedom is a national security imperative as well. And it's very important it's prioritized in the right way. And Congressman Hill has done this. So delighted to have you with us this morning.
Thanks very much.
The floor is yours.
Appreciate it. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank all of you for coming to Washington to keep the spirit moving of the Ministerial for Religious Tolerance. We're so grateful to Ambassador Brownback and for the 31 countries that came together over the last few years to get this momentum going across all faiths for that basic human right of religious tolerance and religious expression. And you know, in this past pandemic year, haven't we seen a lot of challenges as it relates to religious expression? You know, Pope Francis talks about rid martyrdom, and we know all about rid martyrdom. I have the icon in my office of the 31 Coptic Christians killed on the beach in Libya, a prime example of rid martyrdom. Also talked about white martyrdom, where even in a democracy, constraints on religious tolerance and religious freedom. Something to think about. And in the pandemic, we all witnessed that. In America, we talked about our churches are closed, but our liquor stores are open. Our churches were closed, but our liquor stores were open. So that concept, I think, I hear all around the world, people's concerns about constraints on religious expression during the pandemic. And it's been a part of this, I think, feeling of ecumenicalism that no, we want to be able to go express our religious beliefs. We can do that and comply with public health standards at the same time. We're adults. And so I think the pandemic has been another awakening to this wonderful move of the last few years towards the ministerial. In Congress, we're fully committed to religious freedom. We know that religious freedom is a fundamental right here. It's a fundamental right for all people on the earth. It's a core tenet of our international relations, our foreign policy. I've just come back from Jerusalem and Doha, Qatar. Arrived back Sunday night. I'm a little wobbly as a result of that. But I can tell you that the conversation about religious tolerance was on the agenda both in Doha and Qatar as well as in Jerusalem. And I bring you greetings from His Beatitude, the Patriarch of Jerusalem, and the Anglican Church, and the Coptic Church, and the Latin Patriarch. We were all together talking about the need for religious tolerance in the Holy Land. We also went to the Palestinian Authority and met with Abu Mazen and his leadership there, struggling to try to figure out how in the world to run the Palestinian Authority when they don't even have political agreement among themselves. But again, religion's at the heart of so much of what we do, and our individual human effort to express it is so fundamental. In the House, we have efforts to speak out for the Uyghur population. In the House, we have efforts to speak out for the people of Hong Kong, whose rights are being shut down systematically by the Chinese Communist Party. We have an effort led by me in the House to speak out for the Coptic Christians of Egypt, where we say in Egypt, and a great expression of the people in Egypt is, all Egyptians take their water from the Nile. So indeed, then I would argue that all Egyptians have the same rights to religious tolerance inside Egypt. And so we are committed in the House to this tenet. I'm not alone. It's a bipartisan group, and it's been referenced as to the strength of that bipartisanship and bicameral nature. And we have a copy of our letter that we sent to President Biden in May, signed by leaders in the House and leaders in the Senate urging the President to appoint a special envoy, a religious ambassador for religious freedom at the State Department. We think this is critical to continue to press for all the things that all of you work so hard for around the world. So thank you, first of all, for your voice for religious tolerance. Thank you for your advocacy in your own countries, that you would take time to come to the United States to continue that advocacy. And let's remember, we have the ability to change the world, and we can do that through our faith. So thank you very much, and God bless your work, and thanks for being in Washington this week.
Thank you, Congressman Hill. That means a lot to us, and especially this week, engaging with member offices, to have you here and to have that wind behind our back in this movement means a lot. So I encourage everyone, when you're taking these office meetings, to make sure you mention this bipartisan, bicameral letter. I think it fits exactly with the format that we're pursuing, and I think it could be very effective in raising awareness about it. We have a number of terrific organizations here. We were looking at the list, and there's well over 30 organizations who are represented just here. Several representatives, people who wanted to come but couldn't make it. It's probably the most diverse meeting this morning in Washington, which says a lot. As part of that theme of diversity and in solidarity with the persecuted, we think it's very special today to have two individuals who, as was mentioned by Ambassador Brownback, he alluded to it, are leading a movement that is as big as it can get in international religious freedom. And we're talking about the two individuals who've spent a lot of their work, their life's work, devoted to international religious freedom. And when I first got an introduction to these two individuals, I had an opportunity to look at the work they do. And there's an opportunity here, and it was told to Drew and I by Tim Shaw, who's here as a leader in his own right in this space, that there could be an alliance between Protestant and Muslims in a very grand way that could bring attention to international religious freedom. The world's largest Muslim organization, Nahdlatul Ulama, which is in Indonesia, is well known among many people, but particularly in the Muslim community. And it is a distinct honor to have the General Secretary of that incredibly important organization, Yahya Stakuf, who's here. Assalamu alaikum. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And alongside him, Democker, the Secretary General of the World Evangelical Alliance, is here. I invite both of you to please come forward and to share some words about the movement the common movement that you're hoping to build. It's so important and vital to the work that we're achieving.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Yahya Stakuf. I serve as the Secretary General of the Supreme Council, the Council of Ulama of the organization. We started this movement that we call the Global Movement of Humanitarian Islam in 2017, and then we engaged with the WEA, the World Evangelical Alliance, and we established a joint working group between the Humanitarian Islam movement and the WEA. And now we have our friend Dr. Schirmacher just appointed as the Secretary of the WEA, and we today in the afternoon we will have a big event of our own in cooperation with the community of the Nations Mosque. We will announce an alignment between the WEA and the Humanitarian Islam, and also we will launch a book that we regard as an important book, which we mean as a fast track for the appointment of our friend Dr. Thomas Schirmacher as the General Secretary of WEA. And the title of the book is Reimagining the Relationship with Muslim-Christian Relationship in 21st Century. What we have in mind with the efforts, this joint working group between the Mantar Islam and WEA, is to try to find a more theologically supported framework to have peaceful coexistence between Islam and Christianity and all other religions, because we acknowledge that until now we still have some problems within the theology of our religion also. So we are pursuing a way to have a reform in the theology and the mindset of the community that hopefully will enable us to have a more harmonious relationship with all different groups of religion. So is my friend Dr. Thomas Schirmacher, the General Secretary of World Evangelical Alliance. Please.
Yeah, thank you very much. When I look at you, one thing that is something special for me is not only to have Muslims and Buddhists and so on, but within the same religion to have very diverse groups. Yeah? Because we know this in Europe, but it's true elsewhere. In religious wars, more people have been killed within the same religion than between religions. So we think of the Crusades, but the number of people killed in wars between Sunnis and Shiites, Catholics, Protestants, yeah, goes far beyond any number of people killing between the religions. Yeah? And religious freedom always has to be a religious freedom within, especially the big world religions, and not only for the outside. So how we deal with our own people tells a lot. And the second thing, the test for religious freedom is always if you are in power. It's easy for minorities to speak up for religious freedom and to want it. Yeah? Whether you really mean it, yeah, is the Baptists, for example. They have a state in India, very small state, but there they have 85% of the people. So if I want to know whether Baptists like religious freedom, I go there. Because they are in power. Yeah? And to be frank, in my own community, sometimes you are disappointed when people get into power. They suddenly, fighting for themselves all the time, suddenly switch over and do what everybody else will do. You have power, so you push for your own identity on all the others. I would like to make it very clear, one thing my friend already said, we are deep into theology. Yeah? This is not just meeting from time to time. Yeah? The top theologians from both sides are deeply involved in discussions about natural law. Is there an equivalent in Islam? If you say God does not want this, where do you get this from? Is this consistent with your faith? It goes really deep back in history. We have people from both sides who know extremely well what the other side has written. Yeah? And I think that does meeting, and from time to, but at the same time, we want to really change things. And this is why I'm most proud when people ask me, and you can imagine in the beginning a lot of people questioned all of this and said, how in the world can you go? And then when I tell them that in Indonesia, thousands and tens of thousands of Muslims have become Christians, and no one has been killed. I mean, just to give an idea, yeah? Move everybody to Indonesia. And, yeah? So, I said, that cannot be. Yeah? And I recall a big conference where somebody argued with me, and then I said, well, have you ever been in Indonesia? No, but I've read the Quran. Yeah? So, we really want to change something. And so my best argument is what happened in Gambia in just before COVID. My wife Christine and I myself, we visited Gambia, because they wanted to go for a constitution which would have destroyed religious freedom. And now the story starts. The first challenge was to unite the Christians. The Christians have 1% of the population, but enough money to fight each other day and night. Yeah? I had to speak with the Pope to get the Catholic bishop to get on the boat. Yeah? And our evangelical lines never had met with the Catholics and the National Council of Churches. So we only had one day to get them in one boat and say, you have to accept each other. So, because we wanted to reach out to what they call moderate Muslims in Gambia, which are the majority of the people, but had no voice. Yeah? And of course, how in the world can we know in a country like this who are the moderate Muslims? But they know them. Yeah? So they could tell us, and high speed, because all those people together, and probably in the end, we had people representing 80% of the population in the room, and long story short, in the end, the constitution, the new constitution failed by 80% of the parliament voting against it. And those who were in favor of it thought that's just a quick deal. Yeah? And so one side is theology, where we have time to discuss things that does not seem to change anything, but the other side is we really want to go around the globe and to assure that good-willing Christians, and not all of us are waiting for this, not all evangelicals are waiting for something like this, and good-willing Muslims come together to assure that our societies stay free societies, and we end wars within our religions, and of course between them. And this is what makes me very happy in Gambia, that the side effect of our cooperation was that the Christians came together. Yeah? So that together we could talk with our Muslim friends. Yeah? And I think we have a lot to do if we think of West Africa and some other situations, but we have a good chance because in many countries together we represent the majority of the people and can give them a voice. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the International Religious Freedom Summit, we welcome both of you. This is an incredibly important alliance. You've come to the right place. The United States is so deeply committed to these issues with the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998. I think it was John Adams who said the first